welcome to Fox Beats Fire. I'm Tom, and this is going to be the first video in a series all about sort of getting started with programming. I'm not going to go into too many specifics about details and difficult sort of functions and tasks and techniques. We're going to keep it fairly simple, and it's not going to be well, it is going to be language specific, but the techniques I'm going to teach you are the ones that are going to be relevant in just about every programming language. So why should you learn to program? Well, software is sort of becoming more and more prevalent over time in sort of all industries and all markets. So learning to program is going to really open up your options and your knowledge of how things work. I love that fact about programming. I know how stuff works. It's great, and I can make things. And that brings me on to my other point as well. If you can program, and you can do it quite well, then you'll find that anything that you can sort of conceptualize, anything you can think of, any ideas that you've got, usually you can make them, at least to a decent extent. So as I've already stated, this video is going to be really sort of going over the basics, and the entire series really, but this particular video is going to be nice and easy. If you've never done any programming before, this is probably then a good example of the sort of video you want to be watching. We're going to be using a language called C#. It's quite a high level language, and whilst that sounds scary, high level languages are usually easier to program in. Before we actually start programming, we're going to need to download a software or an IDE that we can program in, which is sort of like an environment. It's a place you program. And the one we're going to use is called Visual Studio, which is, it's basically designed for C#. It's very good. And you can see I've already got it downloaded down there, but I'm going to go ahead and show you how to download it anyway. So if you go ahead and open your web browser, I've used Firefox, and all you're going to do is you can type in Visual Studio, like so. I did not spell that right. And it's probably going to be the top one. You want to be on visualstudios.microsoft.com, and you'll see that you've got about 4 options for different kinds of software that you can download. The one you need, and the only one you need to worry about, is Visual Studio IDE, and then if you go over the drop down arrow, it's going to be Community. So if you go ahead and download that, it might take a couple of minutes, and then what will happen is it will appear in your downloads folder, somewhere in there. It's going to appear somewhere in there as a Visual Studio installing execution. Double click that, and again, it's probably going to take a couple of minutes. You want to get that downloaded and pause the video while you're doing that, and then get started. Okay, so you've probably or hopefully downloaded the Visual Studio installer and run the installation process. And what you're probably going to be left with is not this screen. Wait for it. This screen. This is the screen you're probably going to be left with if you've got the installer set up. And there's loads of options here. You're not going to know what most of these are. If you've done a bit of programming or a bit of reading up on programming, you might recognize a couple of them. Maybe Python. Python's pretty popular. But for this video, you're probably only going to need the .NET C# stuff. So you'll see that I've got that box ticked there, which is the .NET development, the .NET desktop development box, and the Universal Windows Platform development. You probably don't need that one, but I've got it ticked anyway. You can come back and uninstall any of these whenever you want, so it's no big deal if you miss anything else. Once you've ticked those boxes, make sure you go down here into the bottom right corner, and there'll be a button that says install, so you're going to need to install those, and those are going to take absolutely ages. So you're going to have to pause the video again. I know you want to get cracking, but you're going to have to pause the video again and probably come back in like, I don't know, an hour or two when it installs, depending on how quick your internet is. So once you've installed all those, this is probably a couple hours later for you, you're going to this is the main Visual Studio window that will open up when you actually open Visual Studios. And you can see I've got loads of previous projects done, but you probably won't have anything there. And what we're going to need to click on is create a new project. So we're going to go ahead and click on that. And we're going to want something in C#. So up there you can type C# in, and it'll give you all the possible options that you can use for the C# language. And the only one we're going to worry about is Console App and then .NET Core. So click on that, find that and click on it. It's probably at the top. And then press Next. And then we're going to give it a name. You can call it whatever you want. I'm just going to leave it as Console App 4. And press Create. And what it's going to do is it's going to set up your project. It's going to set up all the background stuff that you don't need to worry about, so that you can just basically make your application. It should only take a second. And mine's taking longer than usual, but anyway, there we go. So that's your main sort of window for programming. This is where you're going to write all your code. Now don't worry about too much about what's going on there with all the different using namespace, class, and static void stuff. All you're going to need to know for this video is that anything you code needs to be below this line here, and then one second, needs to be above here, So everything that you code needs to be within these two brackets here, And then, so that's why I've written the two below, the below and above statements there. So just make sure you're writing everything between there. So where that console.writeLine hello world is, you're going to write everything in that sort of area. Don't go outside that or it probably won't work. So what I'm going to do here is, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to run the code that's already there. And it's going to be really basic, and what it's going to do is that console.writeLine that you can see is going to print off that hello world to the console. And you'll see, if you don't know what a console is, you'll see in a minute. So to run the code that you've got, you're going to press Control and you're going to press F5. And it'll just compile it, it's getting ready, it's getting put together. And it's going to bring up your console, this is your console, and you'll see it's printed off hello world at the top there. And so that's a really basic program. That's about as simple as a program can be. And I'm going to go over a few of the sort of very basic techniques now that are going to allow you to do some sort of interesting bits and bats with your code. Don't forget the console.writeLine bit, by the way. We're going to be using that a lot. So console.writeLine, and then you give it 2 brackets, and anything you put inside those 2 brackets, those can be used. Anything you put in there will be printed to the console. And the first thing I'm going to go over now is we're going to go into variables. And variables are super important because you're going to use them in every bit of software you ever make. They're used to basically hold information. So if we want to hold, let's say, a number, we're going to use a type called int. So all variables have to have a type. The type of this variable we're writing, which is going to be a number, is going to be int. So it's going to be an int, and we're going to call it my number. So that's the name, and then we're going to give it a value of 10. So that is a basic variable, that is a number. So the int, or the integer, which is what int is short for, my number is holding a value of 10 right now. So if I was now to go to console.writeLine, like I did, like it was at the start when I opened the program, and then I put my number in there like that, and it's go Control F5 to run it, what it's going to do is it's going to print 10 to screen, because that is the value that is being held by my number. So what else can you do with variables? Well, because that's an int, it's a number, we can add 2 ints together. So if we were to create another int and go, I don't know why it's done that, if we were to create another int and go my number 2 equals 20, what we can then do is we can go console.writeLine, and we can go my number plus my number 2, like that. And then we're going to Control F5 it, and it's going to print off 30. It's going to print off the result of my number plus my number 2. Now you could also save that to a variable, so we could make int my number 3 equals, and then my number plus my number 2. And that the result of that will mean that my number 3 is equal to 30, because it's my number 1 plus my number 2. There are several other operations that you can do, and mathematical ones. In fact, there are more than several. There are thousands. There are so many different things you can do mathematically within programming, but we're just going to go over basic ones today. So you could also do, and we'll do another console.writeLine, you could do my number 1, and you could do times my number 2. And if we print that off, it'll print off the result of 10 times 20. So just to show you, it's going to be 200. There you go. And you can do the same thing with divide. And if you do divide, it's going to be a slash, a forward slash like that. And then you can do plus and you can do minus. Now, one thing to know about divide is that an int can only be a whole number. It can't be 1.05 or 10.4. It has to be a whole number. So if you divide a number by another number that doesn't divide fully, and the result is going to be 1 point something, then it will round it to the nearest whole number. I can't remember exactly what it does, but something like that. So we're going to go over another variable type now. We're going to go over strings. And you're going to use strings a lot. Ints and strings are probably the most common ones. So a string is basically going to be instantiated or created like this. We'll call it my string equal, and then whenever you make a string, it has to be, or in C#, it has to be within 2 quotation marks, or are they speech marks? Either way. So if I was to now to put in my name is Tom, and save that, and let's do a console.writeLine, and we'll type it, we'll type in my string like that, and then when we Control F5 that, it's going to print off my name is Tom, because that's what we've put into the string. Now you can add strings together in the same way that you can add numbers together. So if I was to go my string plus my string, and Control F5 again, my name is Tom, it's going to print it off twice. Now, you notice how, sorry, I'll just run that again. You notice how the 2 M's are together there, we don't have a space. Well, we could also put a space in. So if I was to go my string plus, and then put 2 quotation marks like that, and then just put a space in there, and then give another plus there to add the final string on, and Control F5 that, it's going to go my name is Tom, space, my name is Tom, and produce a more complete string, if you like. So string manipulation can be done sort of like that. The string manipulation does get quite tricky. You can remove characters, you can add characters, you can replace characters, And you're going to find that string manipulation is a very useful skill to have, especially the high level stuff, because that's hard and useful. Alright, I'm going to go over a little trick now with console.writeLine. So if you want to notice how whenever I want to add something to the string there, I have to put a plus, and then the thing I want to add, and then a plus, and then the thing I want to add. But what if I want to add something in the middle of a string? So if I was to go console.writeLine like this, we're going to make a string up here, and we're just going to go string name equals Tom, like that. And then I'm going to come into my console.writeLine, and I'm going to say, what should we say? We'll say, what is, oh no, we'll go, my name is, like so, and then we're going to put a parentheses like that, and you'll find that next to your P on your keyboard, or you should do, and then we're going to put 0, and then we're going to put another parentheses. We're then going to put a comma instead of a plus, and we're going to type in the variable that we want to show. So it'd be name, not a name, name, like so. And what that's going to do is it's going to take the variable that you've put, or the first variable that you've put after this comma, after the string, and it's going to put it inside that parentheses there. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit so that people can see more easily. And it's going to put it inside these parentheses where the 0 is. And you can do this with multiple, so we could put another one, let's say here. And then if I create another variable, then we go string, and we go name2 equals fox, like that. And then we go another comma here, and we put name2. What that's going to do is that's going to print off my name is Tom Fox. So if I control F5 that, it's going to go my name is Tom Fox. Ignore the top line there, and that's working. So that is a nifty little trick that you can do with console.writeLine there. You'll find it's very useful, because sometimes just using plus and adding the strings on, it's a bit of a pain, and it doesn't always do what you want it to do. Next thing I want to look at dead quick is something called the console.readLine, and what that's going to do is that's going to pause the program in the console, and it's going to wait for some user input. So if I was now to do one, let's just put one in here, console.readLine. Nope, not read key. We'll come to that another time. Read line like so. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put another console.writeLine in. And we're just going to put program finished into there, and give that a save, and we're going to run it. And what's going to happen is you'll see it hasn't printed off program finish, and that's because it's waiting for us to do something. So if I now press enter, it'll say program finished, and it'll finish the program. Now what you can do with this is you can actually get some user input. So if I was to type something into the console whilst it was waiting for some input, it can be used to save that to a string. So if console.readLine, so if I go and create a string and just call it information like that, is equal to console.readLine, what it's going to do is it's going to save any information that I type in to the string information. So then I can go into my console.writeLine and type in the information equals, and then I can we'll do the little trick there with the parentheses and the 0, and then we're going to put the variable information like that, and then we're going to control F5 it, and it's waiting for some user input now. So if I put this is some awesome information, please hit like and press enter, it's going to print that back to me. The information is equal to, and then it prints all the information that it gave it into the console window. So the final thing I'm going to go over in this video is an if and else statement, and before I do that I'm just going to get rid of all this, so if there's anything you want to make a note of, go ahead. So if and else statements, what they allow you to do is they allow you to make decisions within your program. So if you want certain conditions to run when certain information is given, you can put that inside an if statement and it will run it if the statement is true. So I'll give you an example. So if, and we're just going to put 1 is equal to 1, and that's another thing you need to know. When you're comparing two values, so it could be strings or it could be two ints, when you're comparing them, you need to give two equal signs. So if 1 is equal to 1 requires two equal signs, whereas if you're setting a value, you only need one equal sign. Just something that you're going to have to remember there. So if 1 equals 1, console.writeLine 1 equals 1. And then we're going to go else. So if that statement fails, which that one never will because 1 always equals 1, but else, we're going to print console.writeLine and 1 does not equal 1. And so now if I go control F5 and run that, 1 equals 1. It's printed 1 equals 1 because the statement is true, and it's gone in here and printed that out, and I'm not sure what's wrong with that. Oh, it's unreachable code because this is always going to be 1. So now if I was to go 1 equals 2, which it never does, and then run that. You see that's become unreachable now because it knows that 1 doesn't equal 2 and this statement will never run. So if I was now to control F5, 1 does not equal 1 because this statement has failed. This is false, meaning it's going to run this instead. You don't have to have an else statement. You can use if statements independently of else statements, but often it's useful to have an else statement in the event of some other external case that you didn't see coming or something. It's just sort of to catch anything you missed. Other sort of operators that you can use within if and else statements are your greater than, your less than, and your not equal to. And these are sort of the most common ones you're going to come across. You're going to have your equal to, greater than, less than, and not equal to. Oh yeah, and don't forget your greater than or equal to, and less than and equal to, which would be like that, or like that. So those are generally going to be the operations that you're going to use to compare if and else statements. And if and else statements are really, they're going to be used in all software, as are variables. Console read line, maybe not so much. Console write line is going to be used a lot in future, especially when you're debugging. So if you've got a bit of complicated software and you've got to keep track of what's going on, sometimes it can be useful to write a console to write line just to print off the information from the program so that you can see what it's doing. Right, so the last thing in the video that we're going to do is we're going to make a little sort of text-based game, or text-based adventure that you can have a go at programming. So sort of a little challenge for you, a little task, just to give you a bit more practice in it. I'll give you an idea of what that's going to include. So I'm going to start off by going console.writeline. I'm going to go welcome to the adventure. Like that. I'll just get an exclamation mark, it's a big deal. And then we're going to go another console.writeline. I'm just making this up as I go along, I don't have a script or anything, so it might not be the best, but another console.writeline, input your name. And then we're going to go string name equals console.readline. Like that. So it's going to now wait for the user to input his name, and we're going to do another one. So we're going to go int. We'll go console.writeline, and then we'll go what is your age, and we'll now do another console.readline for that when I can type it correctly, and we'll make it equal to an int. So let's do this as a string. I'm not actually sure if you can save a value for console to an int. I think it has to be a string. It could be wrong though. So string age equals console.readline. So that's now going to save your name and your age to a string. So let's print off what's going on to the user. So we'll go console.writeline again. And you'll see I'm using console.writeline a lot in this. We're going to go welcome to input value. You are, and then input value 2, old, years old. Like so, and then we'll just input name and age at the end of that, so they print it off. So let's have a run of this and see what happens. Welcome to the adventure, input your name, Tom. What is your age? 24. Welcome, Tom, you are 24 years old. So that's nice and simple, nice easy start to the program. Now what we're going to do is we're going to actually ask the user to make a decision. So if we were to go console.writeline, would you like to travel over the bridge or towards or through the forest? This is a very generic example of what the game could include. You can do it however you want and make it as complicated as you want, but I'm just going to keep it simple for this example. Through the forest. And then we're going to go string choice equals console.readline. Then we're going to make an if statement, and if the choice is equal to forest, we're going to go console.writeline. Oh no, you have been eaten by a bear. Adventure over. And then we can put an else statement in, and we can go congratulations. Oh no, we'll do a console.writeline. So obviously we have to print that to the screen. Congrats, you have travelled, or safely travelled, over the bridge. So now we're going to go ahead and run this just to show you what it's all going to do and give you a good example of what the text adventure should do. So I'm just going to input my name, Tom, input my age, we'll go 24 because that's my age, and it says welcome, you're 24, and then it's going to ask me if I want to travel over the bridge or through the forest. So if I now type in bridge, oh, do you know what I didn't, did I even add that in? Oh, right, yeah, so if I now type in bridge, it's going to break through the if statement because it's not equal to forest, and press enter, yeah, congrats, you've safely travelled over the bridge. And now if I run it again, Input your name, Tom, input your age, 24, and then we're going to go Forest or Bridge, and we're going to type in Forest. Now you're going to make sure you spell it right, obviously, and then it's going to tell me, oh no, I have been eaten by a bear. So yeah, that is the basics of the text adventure. And then you could ask the user to make another choice, you see. Now, I mean, what we could do is, if you were going to have multiple choices, you could have if statements within if statements within if statements, but that wouldn't be very good because it's going to be a bit messy and it's not going to be great. So there are other ways that you could do that. I want you to see if you can find them yourself. So I'm not sure. I haven't thought about how you do it without looking into some other tools and things, but it's definitely a good idea for you guys to have a go at thinking about how you could actually do this without requiring loads of if statements within each other, and for the program just to sort of run procedurally and normally and smoothly and cleanly. But yeah, that's a good little challenge for you, and hopefully it'll be a little bit of fun as well. If you really wanted to make it a bit more tricky for yourself, what you could do is you could actually add a live system. And I'm not going to go into that in this video because I think it's a bit too complicated for the first video. Maybe we'll do it, or I'll go over the sort of tools to do that in the next couple of videos. But yeah, thank you for watching. Hopefully you've learned some very basic ideas about programming here, and if you want to learn a bit more, then keep watching the series because there's going to be more to come, and there's going to be more complex stuff to come. And if you watch the entire series, you'll probably be at, you know, a reasonable sort of basic level or an intermediate kind of level, which would be great. So thank you again very much for watching, and feel free to like and subscribe if you like the content, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.